Dark feminine energy rituals, shadow work, sacred rebellion, and wild goddess practices to awaken your seductive power, confidence, and untamed femininity. Introduction. Chapter 1, The Awakening of the Crimson Moon. Chapter 2, Why Do We Fear the Dark? Chapter 3, Shadow Work, Mining Gold from the Abyss. Chapter 4, Mastering the Art of the Boundary. Chapter 5, 3 Pillars of Magnetic Presence. Chapter 6, Sacred Rebellion, Breaking the Good Girl Myth. Chapter 7, Transmuting Pain into Creative Power. Chapter 8, Can Vulnerability Be Your Greatest Weapon? Chapter 9, The Descent into the Underworld. Chapter 10, 7 Rituals for Wild Embodiment. Chapter 11, Harnessing the Power of Seductive Silence. Chapter 12, Who is the Woman Behind the Mask? Chapter 13, Emotional Sovereignty, Owning Your Inner Storm. Chapter 14, The Night the Siren Sang. Chapter 15, 5 Steps to Reclaim Your Primal Voice. Chapter 16, Cultivating an Unshakable Self-Worth. Chapter 17, What Happens When You Stop Asking for Permission. Chapter 18, Intellectual Eroticism, the Mind as an Aphrodisiac. Chapter 19, The Return of the Integrated Queen. Chapter 20, Sustaining the Flame of Untamed Femininity. Conclusion. Dark feminine energy rituals, shadow work, sacred rebellion, and wild goddess practices to awaken your seductive power, confidence, and untamed femininity. By Aurelia Voss. Introduction. The air on the rooftop is cool, but Elena Vance doesn't shiver. She stands near the edge of the glass railing, looking out over the Seattle skyline. Below her, the city hums with the sound of traffic and rain, but up here it feels like she is standing on top of the world. A few months ago, she would have been hiding in the corner of a party like this. She would have been checking her phone every 2 minutes to look busy. She would have been worrying if her dress was too tight, or if she had something in her teeth. Tonight is different. Elena isn't trying to be good. She isn't trying to be nice. She is simply there, and her presence fills the space around her like a physical weight. When she speaks, people stop what they are doing to listen. When she walks across the floor, heads turn, not because she is shouting for attention, but because she looks like a woman who finally knows exactly who she is. A high-level executive from a rival firm approaches her. Usually, Elena would scramble to find something smart to say. Instead, she just looks at him and smiles. It is a slow, calm smile. She lets the silence hang between them for a second longer than is comfortable. She watches him blink, watching him realize that she isn't the one who needs something from him. He is the one trying to impress her. She feels a deep, steady warmth in her chest. It is a power she didn't know she had, or rather, a power she had been told to hide since she was a little girl. It is the power of her own shadow. It is her dark feminine energy, fully awake and integrated. But to understand how Elena became this version of herself, we have to go back to the night everything felt like it was falling apart. We have to go back to the night she realized she had become a ghost in her own life. The ghost in the window. In a quiet office building in downtown Seattle, the lights are mostly dimmed. Only one desk is still glowing. Elena is 34 years old, and she is tired. Her back aches from sitting in the same chair for 10 hours. Her eyes are dry from staring at a marketing spreadsheet. She is a senior marketing manager, a title that sounds impressive, but tonight it just feels like a heavy backpack she can't take off. She is staying late to finish a project for a man named Mark. Mark is also a manager, but he left at 5 o'clock to go to a baseball game. He forgot to finish his part of the presentation, and he knew Elena would fix it. He knew she wouldn't say no. He knew she would smile and say, "Don't worry about it, I've got it." Elena looks at the dark window next to her desk. For a second, she doesn't see the city. She sees her own reflection. The woman looking back at her looks old. There are dark circles under her eyes. Her shoulders are hunched forward, as if she is trying to make herself smaller. She realizes with a jolt of fear that she doesn't recognize herself. She has become the perfect employee. She's the good girl. She's the woman who never makes waves, never says no, and never asks for what she actually wants. And because she is so good at being nice, she is invisible. Earlier that day, she had watched a promotion go to someone else, someone who did half the work but had twice the confidence. She had gone home to a minimalist apartment that felt sterile and cold, mourning a 5-year relationship that ended because she had lost herself in it. She had become whatever her partner wanted her to be, until there was nothing left of the original Elena. She is exhausted by the nice girl trap. She is tired of being the one who makes everyone else feel comfortable while she feels like she is drowning. She is realizing that being agreeable hasn't made her happy. It hasn't made her successful. It has only made her a target for people who want to take advantage of her. The problem we don't talk about. If you are reading this, you might feel exactly like Elena. You might feel small in your own life. Maybe you feel like people take you for granted at work. Maybe you feel like your partner or your friends don't really see you. You have spent your whole life trying to be good. You followed the rules. You tried to be quiet. You tried to be accommodating. You were taught that being nice was your greatest strength. But there is a problem with being a good girl. When you spend all your energy trying to please other people, you lose contact with your own soul. You start to fear your own emotions. You hide your anger because you think it makes you difficult. You hide your ambition because you don't want to seem aggressive. You hide your deep desires because you are afraid of being judged. This is what we call good girl conditioning. It is a set of invisible rules that tell women to stay in the light, to be nurturing, soft, and compliant. But humans aren't just made of light. We have shadows too. When you suppress your shadow, you aren't just hiding your bad parts. You are hiding your power. You are hiding your intuition. You are hiding the part of you that knows how to set a boundary and mean it. The modern world is full of women who are suffering from a burnout epidemic. This isn't just because we are working too hard. It is because we are working too hard to be something we are not. We are trying to have it all, while playing by rules that were never meant to help us succeed. We are disconnected from our bodies and our primal instincts. We have been sanitized. We have been made safe, quiet, and predictable. The promise of the dark feminine. This book is about the parts of you that you were told to hide. It is about dark feminine energy. Now, before you get worried, dark doesn't mean evil. In this context, dark means the hidden, the deep, and the mysterious. Think of the ocean. The surface is bright and sunny, but the deep water is dark. That deep water is where the real power lives. It is where the most ancient and incredible creatures dwell. When you reclaim your dark feminine energy, you stop being a diluted version of yourself. You become integrated. You learn to use your shadow as fuel for your transformation. You move from seeking validation from the outside world to possessing an internal magnetism. You don't have to chase opportunities or people anymore. You draw them toward you. By the time you finish these pages, you will be able to set impenetrable boundaries without feeling guilty. Use your darker emotions like anger and envy as a map to your true desires. Carry yourself with a magnetic confidence that commands respect. Reconnect with your body and your physical instincts. Stop asking for permission to live your own life. This isn't about becoming a different person. It is about becoming the person you were always meant to be before the world told you to sit down and be quiet. It is about becoming a wild goddess. Why you can trust this path. The ideas in this book aren't just theories. They are based on thousands of years of human history and psychology. For centuries, society has tried to tame women. In the 1800s, women who were too loud or too passionate were often diagnosed with hysteria and locked away. This was a way to pathologize feminine power. But even then, the wild woman archetype never died. She survived in our myths, our art, and our secret rituals. We see this power in the stories of women like Artemisia Gentileschi, a painter who turned her greatest trauma into masterpieces that still shock people today. We see it in Hedy Lamarr, who used her siren beauty to hide the fact that she was one of the greatest inventors of the 20th century. We see it in the ancient myth of Lilith, the woman who refused to submit and chose the wilderness over a life of subservience. These women weren't nice. They were sovereign. They were the bosses of their own souls. This book will show you how to follow in their footsteps using practical rituals and shadow work. This isn't just a self-help book. It is a journey of rebellion. It is a sacred rebellion against every force that has ever told you that you are too much or not enough. Following Elena's journey. As we move through the chapters, we will follow Awaylena Vance as she begins her transformation. You will see her in her glass-walled office in Seattle. You will see her in her sterile apartment. You will see her taking long, rainy walks in the park, trying to find her voice. Awaylena is just like you. She is someone who feels like she has been sleeping for a long time. She is someone who is tired of being the backup character in her own story. As she learns the rituals in this book, her life begins to change. She starts to use the velvet number. She starts to practice seductive silence. She begins to look into the obsidian mirror to see who she really is. Her story won't be easy. There will be moments where she wants to run back to her good girl cage because it feels safe. There will be moments where her boss or her family try to tame her again. But Awaylena is waking up. And once a woman wakes up to her own power, she can never go back to being a ghost. The roadmap ahead. We are about to go on a journey together. It is a journey from the garden of social conformity into the wilderness of your true self. We will start by looking at the awakening of the crimson moon. This is where we learn about the history of the suppressed feminine and the myth of Lilith. We will talk about why we choose the wilderness over the safety of the garden. Then, we will look into the obsidian mirror. We will talk about why society fears powerful women and how to heal the witch wound. You will learn how to stop fearing the dark parts of yourself and start seeing them as your greatest strength. Next, we will dive into shadow work. This is where you learn to find the gold in your anger and your envy. You will see how Artemisia Gentileschi used her shadow to become a legend. We will master the art of the boundary. I will teach you the velvet no, a way to speak your truth that is soft in delivery but unbreakable in substance. You will learn how to stop the energy leaks that are draining your power. We will explore the 3 pillars of magnetic presence. You will learn how to be home in your body so that others feel your weight and your value. We will look at the unbothered energy of Hedy Lamarr and how she used it to escape an oppressive life. We will talk about sacred rebellion and how to break the good girl myth. You will learn how to stop seeking permission and how to handle the approval detox when your family or friends don't understand your new power. We will learn how to transmute pain. You will see how to turn heartbreak and setbacks into raw material for your success. You will see how vulnerability, when used correctly, can be your greatest weapon. We will make the descent into the underworld. This is a deep ritual of letting go of your old identity. We will talk about the 7 gates of stripping and how to find peace in your own nothingness. Finally, we will arrive at the return of the integrated queen. You will learn how to maintain this energy in a world that will always try to tame you. You will create a wild maintenance plan to keep your flame burning bright. The good girl, Awaylena Vance, is about to disappear. The woman who stands on that rooftop in Seattle is someone else entirely. She is a woman who has looked into the dark and found her own light. She is a woman who doesn't need to ask if she is allowed to be powerful. She just is. The path is open. The moon is rising. It is time to step out of the garden and into the wild. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Awakening of the Crimson Moon. 1,000 years ago, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was a place of emerald palms and golden dust. In the stories of the time, this was the site of the world's first garden. It was a place of total peace, where every fruit was sweet and every animal was tame. But if you look at that same land today, much of it is a harsh, sun-drenched wilderness. The greenery has retreated, leaving behind a landscape that looks unforgiving to the untrained eye. In the ancient tales, this shift from garden to wilderness wasn't just a change in the weather. It was the result of a choice. It was the moment the first woman decided that a beautiful cage was still a cage. Most people grow up hearing the story of Eve, the woman who took a bite of an apple and ended paradise. But there is an older story, one kept in the shadows for centuries. It is the story of Lilith. She didn't just eat the fruit, she walked out of the gate on her own 2 feet because she refused to be less than what she was. The woman who said no to paradise. According to ancient folklore found in the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith was the first woman, created at the exact same time and from the exact same earth as the first man, Adam. In the beginning, they lived in the Garden of Eden, a place of perfect safety. There was no hunger, no cold, and no fear. But there was a catch. Adam believed that because he was the man, he should be the one in charge. He expected Lilith to lie beneath him, both physically and metaphorically. He wanted her to be his helper, his quiet companion, and his subordinate. He saw the garden as a kingdom where he was the king and she was a subject. Lilith looked at the man. She looked at the walls of the garden, and she realized something that many women are only just beginning to admit today. She realized that safety is not the same thing as happiness. She argued that since they were made of the same dust, they were equals. When Adam refused to see her as his peer, Lilith didn't stay to argue or try to fix him. She didn't shrink herself to fit into his world. Instead, she spoke a secret powerful name and flew away. She left the lush grass and the easy food for the Red Sea, a place the stories call a wilderness filled with demons and storms. To the people who wrote these stories later, Lilith was a monster. They called her a night demon, and warned that she was a danger to children and men. But if we look past the labels, we see the first act of the dark feminine. Lilith chose the wilderness, because in the wilderness she could be whole. She chose the crimson moon, the light that shines in the dark, over the blinding artificial sun of a garden that demanded she be small. The myth of the good girl reward. We are often told a myth from the time we are toddlers. The myth says that if you are good, you will be rewarded. In our modern world, being good means being agreeable. It means not raising your voice, even when you are angry. It means putting everyone else's needs before your own. It means being the nice girl who never makes waves. Society promises that if you stay in the garden, if you follow the rules and keep everyone happy, you will get the promotion, the perfect partner, and the happy life. But for many women, the reality looks very different. They stay in the garden, they work twice as hard as everyone else, they keep their opinions to themselves, and they end up exhausted, overlooked, and invisible. This is the central lie that the dark feminine energy seeks to dismantle. The good girl isn't a personality, it's a mask. It's a survival strategy we learned when we were young, because we were afraid of being too much. We were afraid that if we showed our true power, our raw ambition, or our deep desires, we would be cast out. Lilith's story is a myth buster, because it shows us that being cast out isn't a death sentence. It's an initiation. The wilderness is simply the name the world gives to any place where a woman is in total control of herself. When you stop asking for permission to exist, the people who want to control you will call you difficult, cold, or dark. They are simply using the modern words for demon. Alina's discovery in the rain. In a small, minimalist apartment in Seattle, Audrina Vance sat on her floor while the rain tapped against the glass. Her home was perfect, just like her life was supposed to be. She was a senior marketing manager. She had a 401k, a gym membership, and a reputation for being the most reliable person in her office. If someone needed a last-minute report finished on a Friday night, they called Audrina. She always said yes. She always smiled. But that evening, while looking for a misplaced tax document, She had pulled a box from the back of her closet. Inside was a leather-bound journal from her college years. Elena opened the book, expecting to see the ramblings of a kid. Instead, she found a stranger. The girl who wrote those pages was bold. She wrote about wanting to move to South America to paint. She wrote about her fire and how she felt like a volcano ready to erupt. She used words like untamed and sovereign. As Elena read, she felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She looked around her sterile, gray and white living room. She looked at her phone, which was currently buzzing with 3 urgent emails from a boss who didn't even know her middle name. The woman in the journal was gone. In her place was a ghost who followed a schedule. Elena walked to her bathroom and turned on the light. She looked into the mirror, but for the first time, she didn't check for wrinkles or messy hair. She looked at her eyes. This was her first encounter with the obsidian mirror. In ancient times, an obsidian mirror was made of black volcanic glass. It didn't show you the pretty version of yourself that you showed to the world. It showed you the truth. It showed you what was hidden in the shadows. Elena saw a woman who was starving. Not for food, but for her own life. She realized that she had been living in a garden of her own making, a cage of shoulds and musts. She had traded her fire for a steady paycheck and the approval of people who didn't actually care about her. For the first time in 10 years, Elena didn't answer the emails. She sat in the silence of her apartment and admitted the truth out loud. I am deeply unhappy. That admission was her first step into the wilderness. The garden versus the wilderness. To understand the awakening of the crimson moon, you have to understand the difference between these two internal landscapes. The garden represents the part of your life where you seek external validation. It is the realm of the light feminine in its distorted form. In the garden, you are nurturing, but you nurture others at the expense of yourself. You are kind, but your kindness is a shield to prevent people from getting mad at you. The garden is safe, but nothing new ever grows there because everything is pruned to look nice. The goal to be liked. The fear, conflict and rejection. The result, burnout and a loss of self. The wilderness represents the dark feminine. It is the part of you that is raw, honest and powerful. It is the place where your monsters live, your anger, your intense sexuality, your unreasonable ambitions. In the wilderness, you don't care if you are liked. You care if you are respected. You don't wait for someone to give you a seat at the table. You build your own table or you hunt for your own food. The goal, to be authentic. The fear, living a lie. The result, magnetic confidence and personal power. Most women are terrified of the wilderness because they have been told it's a place of loneliness. They think that if they set boundaries, or if they stop being the nice girl, everyone will leave them. They think they will end up like Lilith, wandering the desert alone. But here's the truth the stories don't tell you. The wilderness is where the most interesting people are. When you leave the garden, you stop attracting people who want to use you, and you start attracting people who are also wild. You find a different kind of community, one based on truth instead of performance. The flapper as a modern Lilith. History shows us that this awakening happens in waves. Think back to the 1920s. For decades, women were expected to be the angel in the house. They wore corsets that literally prevented them from breathing deeply. They were expected to be silent, modest, and subservient. Then came the flappers. They cut their hair short. They wore dresses that showed their knees. They went out to clubs, they drank, they danced, and they drove cars. To the proper society of the time, these women were scandalous. They were called dark and dangerous. The flappers were the Lilith archetype returning to the modern world. They weren't trying to be bad, just for the sake of it. They were reclaiming their right to breathe, to move, and to exist outside of the domestic cage. They chose the wilderness of the jazz clubs over the garden of the Victorian parlor. When you feel that spark of rebellion in your own chest, that urge to say no when everyone expects a yes, you are tapping into that same lineage. You are waking up to the fact that you have a soul that cannot be contained by social etiquette. Why we hide the dark. If this power is so great, why do we suppress it? The answer lies in our biology and our history. For thousands of years, a woman's survival depended on her ability to fit in. If she was cast out of her tribe or her family, she faced physical danger. We have inherited a witch wound, a deep ancestral fear that if we are too powerful or too different, we will be punished. This fear lives in our nervous system. It's why your heart races when you think about asking for a raise, or why you feel guilty when you spend money on yourself instead of your family. We have been taught to fear the dark because the dark is where the truth lives. The light is easy, it's what we show when everything is fine. But the dark is where we find our real strength. It's where we find the parts of ourselves that we've hidden away because someone once told us they were ugly or unfeminine. Reclaiming your dark feminine energy isn't about becoming a villain. It's about becoming whole. A tree cannot grow tall into the light if its roots do not go deep into the dark earth. By embracing your shadow, you give yourself the foundation you need to stand tall in the world. The first ritual, identifying the cage. Awakening the dark feminine starts with an honest assessment of where you are currently pruning yourself to fit into a garden that is too small for you. Imagine you are standing in front of that obsidian mirror. Forget what you think you should want. Forget what your parents, your boss, or your partner wants for you. Look at the reflection of your soul and ask yourself these 3 questions. Where am I saying yes when my soul is screaming no? This might be at work, in your social life, or even in your bedroom. Every false yes is a brick in the wall of your cage. What part of myself am I most afraid for people to see? Is it your anger? Your ambition? Your desire for a different life? That scary part of you is often where your greatest power is hidden. Who would I be if I stopped caring about being nice? Close your eyes and imagine that version of yourself. How does she walk? How does she speak? What does she wear? For Elena, the answer to the 3rd question was startling. She realized that the not nice Elena didn't apologize before she spoke. She didn't explain herself when she made a decision. She had a presence that was quiet but heavy, like a mountain. She didn't need to yell to be heard, she just needed to be herself. Choosing the wilderness. The awakening of the crimson moon is the moment you realize that the wilderness isn't a place you go to die. It is a place you go to finally live. When Lilith left Eden, she didn't just find demons. She found herself. She found her own voice, her own magic, and her own destiny. She became the patron of every woman who has ever felt like she didn't belong in a polite world. Choosing the wilderness means trusting your intuition over the opinions of others. Owning your desires without feeling the need to justify them. Setting boundaries that protect your energy and your time. Embracing your intensity instead of trying to calm down. It is a scary transition. The first few steps outside the garden gates are always the hardest. You will feel the urge to run back to the safety of your old habits. You will hear the voices of people telling you that you're making a mistake or that you're being selfish. But once you taste the air of the wilderness, once you feel the power of your own no, the garden will never be enough again. You will realize that you were never meant to be a flower meant for someone else's vase. You were meant to be the storm. A new vision of the future. Imagine a world where you move through your day with an internal anchor. You are no longer tossed around by the moods of your boss or the expectations of your friends. You have a deep, quiet confidence that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. People notice a change in you. They can't quite put their finger on it, but you seem heavier in a good way. You have more weight in the room. You speak less, but when you do speak, people listen. You stop seeking attention and start attracting it effortlessly. This isn't a fairy tale. This is what happens when a woman integrates her dark feminine energy. She stops being a diluted version of herself and becomes a concentrated one. She stops performing and starts being. The journey ahead is about reclaiming every piece of yourself that you've ever traded away.